The last train to Kisaragi Station? In Japan, there's a saying that if you ride the train long enough, it will eventually take you somewhere you were never meant to go. Most people laugh that off. They shouldn't. My story begins on a Tuesday night, just after midnight, on a nearly empty commuter train heading west out of the city. The kind of train that smells faintly of metal and stale air, where the lights hum softly and every reflection in the window looks like a ghost if you stare too long. I had worked late, missed my usual stop. That happens sometimes. What doesn't happen is the train not stopping at all. I noticed it first when we passed my station. No chime, no announcement. Just the dark blur of the platform sliding past the window like it never existed. I stood up, walked to the door, and pressed the stop button. Nothing. The door stayed closed. The train kept moving. That's when I realized something else was wrong. There were no advertisements inside the car. No posters, no maps, just blank metal walls, scratched and dented like they'd been there for decades. The digital clock above the door flickered between 12:44 and 12:61, a time that doesn't exist. I wasn't alone. Across from me sat an old man in a conductor's uniform. His hat was tilted too low, shadowing his face. I tried to speak to him. "Excuse me, this train passed my station." He didn't move. I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, impossibly slowly, his head lifted. His face was wrong. Not decayed, not monstrous, just unfinished, like a mask someone forgot to paint. No eyes, no mouth. Only smooth, pale skin. The lights flickered. The train finally began to slow. A distorted announcement crackled through the speakers. "Next stop, Kisaragi Station." I'd never heard of it. The door slid open with a scream of metal, revealing a platform swallowed by darkness. No signs, no lights, no city sounds. Just wind, carrying something that smelled old and damp, like soil that had never seen the sun. I stepped off the train. The doors closed behind me immediately. The train pulled away. I was alone. Kisaragi Station wasn't abandoned. That was the worst part. It was wrongly alive. The platform stretched far longer than it should have, bending slightly, like it was curving away from reality. Cracks in the concrete formed shapes that looked disturbingly deliberate. Symbols I didn't recognize, but somehow understood were warnings. At the far end of the platform stood a single vending machine. It was humming. Every button displayed the same drink, a red can labeled "Do Not Drink." My phone still had signal. Barely. I searched for Kisaragi Station. Nothing. No maps, no records, no history. Just one result. A forum thread from years ago. If you arrive at Kisaragi Station, do not follow the tracks. Do not speak to anyone who calls your name. Whatever you do not look behind you if you hear footsteps. I laughed nervously. Urban legends thrive on fear. That's all this was. Then I heard someone say my name. Softly, from the tunnel. I froze. The voice sounded like my mother. "Come back," it said. "You missed your stop." My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Footsteps echoed behind me. Slow, dragging, wet. I remembered the warning. Do not look behind you. So I didn't. Instead, I walked forward, toward the darkness beyond the platform, where the tracks disappeared into a field of tall grass that swayed even though there was no wind. The footsteps followed. Closer, closer. I began to hear breathing. Too heavy, too close to be human. The air grew colder with every step, and the smell of damp earth turned into the unmistakable stench of decay. My phone buzzed. A new message, from an unknown number. "You should not be here," I typed back with shaking hands. "How do I leave?" The reply came instantly. Greater than asterisk. "You don't." Asterisk. The footsteps stopped. Silence swallowed everything. I felt something lean close to my ear and whisper, "Stay." I ran. I don't remember how long I ran, only that the world seemed to stretch and twist the farther I went, like I was moving through a nightmare that refused to end. Eventually I collapsed. When I woke up, I was lying on a familiar platform. Morning light. People everywhere. Someone was shaking my shoulder, asking if I was okay. They said I'd been found asleep on the last train of the night. I checked the station sign. My station. My phone showed dozens of missed calls. But there was one thing I couldn't explain. Mud on my shoes, grass in my pockets, and a red can sitting in my bag, labeled, "Do not drink." To this day, I never take the last train. And if you ever fall asleep on one and wake up somewhere unfamiliar, check the station name. Because some places in Japan don't exist to be visited. They exist to keep you. Kuchisake-onna. They say Tokyo never really sleeps. But that's a lie people tell themselves, so they don't have to think about what watches them at night. I was working late near Suginimi, cutting through a narrow residential street to catch the last train home. The air smelled like wet concrete and old leaves, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes. Every house was dark, shutters pulled tight, as if the neighborhood itself had turned its face away. My footsteps sounded too loud. That should have been my first warning. That's when I heard the scissors. Snip-oh, scrape, snip. At first I thought it was construction debris shifting in the wind. But the sound was deliberate, slow, patient, like someone savoring each movement. I stopped walking. The noise stopped too. From behind me came a soft, polite voice. "Watashi? Kirei? Am I pretty?" My stomach tightened. Every Japanese kid knows that question. Every kid grows up hearing the same story, passed around in whispers during school trips and sleepovers. Kuchisake-onna, the slit-mouthed woman, a spirit that walks at night wearing a mask, carrying scissors, asking men and children the same impossible question. I told myself I was an adult. Urban legends weren't real. Ghosts didn't walk streets with postal masks and bloodied smiles. Still, I turned slowly. She stood beneath a flickering street lamp, tall, too tall. Her coat hung off her frame like it didn't belong to her, black fabric swallowing the light. A white surgical mask covered the lower half of her face, clean and neat. The elastic bands stretched tight around her ears. Her eyes were the worst part. They weren't angry or wild like the stories said. They were calm, curious, patient, like she already knew how this would end. "Well," she asked again, tilting her head, "am I pretty?" My mouth went dry. The legends raced through my head. If you said no, she killed you on the spot. If you said yes, she removed the mask and asked again. And if you lied, she carved your face to match hers. I remembered another rumor. A loophole. Something about ambiguity. "You're average," I said, my voice cracking. So. For a moment, the street was silent. Then she laughed. It wasn't loud. It was soft, almost delighted, like I'd told her a joke she'd been waiting to hear for years. "So clever," she said. "People don't try that anymore." Her fingers rose to the mask. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't think. I sprinted down the alley, shoes slapping against wet asphalt, breath burning in my lungs. Behind me, the scissors sang, snip, snip, snip. She was fast, too fast. Her footsteps didn't sound like running. They sounded like gliding, like the street itself was carrying her forward. I burst onto a wider road, neon signs buzzing overhead, vending machines humming like nothing was wrong. The sound stopped. I risked a glance behind me. The street was empty. I laughed shakily, convincing myself it was over. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe exhaustion had finally... "Why did you run?" Her reflection smiled at me from the glass of a vending machine. I spun around. She stood inches away now. The mask was gone. Her mouth was split ear to ear, an impossibly wide grin, held together by dark, clotted stitches. The skin around it was raw and wet, as if it had been cut open again and again. Blood glistened along her chin, dripping slowly onto the pavement. "Am I pretty now?" she whispered. I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. She sighed, disappointed. "Liars are the worst." The pain came fast, white-hot and blinding. I felt metal against my face, pressure, warmth spilling down my neck. I screamed, but the sound dissolved into the hum of the machines, into the quiet indifference of the street. When I woke up, it was morning. People stared at me on the train platform. Some looked away quickly. Others couldn't hide their horror. My reflection in the train window showed me the truth before my fingers confirmed it. My mouth, split wide, perfectly symmetrical. Doctor said it was a psychotic break, a self-inflicted wound. They stitched me up, but the scars never closed properly. No matter how careful they were, the skin always pulled apart at the corners. At night, I hear scissors in my apartment. Sometimes, when I pass a child walking alone, I catch my reflection in a shop window. A woman in a mask, eyes bright with curiosity, and I feel the question rising in my throat, polite and gentle, just like she taught me. Am I pretty?